figure it's best to wait a little bit before I get started, or else I cut myself off. Before we get started, just a quick note. This isn't a polished audiobook production, and I'm not a professional narrator. This is simply a space to read, reflect, and think out loud. So whether you're listening while driving, reflecting, working, cooking, or winding down, I appreciate you spending a little time here with me. Today we're continuing The Devil's Chessboard by David Talbot, or Talbot. Talbot, a look at Allen Dulles, the CIA, and the deeper structures of power in the 20th century. As always, this is presented for educational and historical commentary. The goal is to explore ideas and sources, not to tell you what to think. I encourage thoughtful discussion, critical thinking, and your own independent conclusions. Man, I keep going on around midnight. That's all ceiling. How's it going? Oh my goodness. I tried to sit through Trump tonight and I turned it off. And then Anna Paulina Luna posted, see, I told you it was China as the biggest threat to America. Is it though? I just posted a short too that I promise you will get shadow bans. So if you're seeing this, go check it out. It's just the latest one. Oh my gosh. Who was I got off this, I called an old friend today. And I was kind of dreading it. I love him so. He was an owner of a bar I tended. And he was just there for me in a really dark time in my life. And he let me be an employee who also went on the road and took care of my dying father. So he, I don't know, he was like my surrogate father figure. And like the conversation it split once he was talking about the news. He was watching Fox News, and I was like, well, I mainly watch like Tucker and so forth. And he said, well, I think that guy, you know what I mean? There was the rift. And he was talking about China too. And I'm like, dude, knock it off. This stuff is so tired and dull and played out and transparent. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I guess let's just get into it. I'm tired. I finally got some sleep last night, but I haven't been sleeping. What's up, y'all? This is Wendy's, ma'am. Western Australia, amazing. Anyway, he's like, Candace is really off the deep end too. I was like, oh yeah, how exactly? Trying to like traipse my way through not like severing a relationship. I don't like how that happens. I was even telling somebody who always comments talking shit to me. And I was like, you should join me on a live. I noticed he's a musician because he commented so many times, and it was always real, it's like more combative than it is debating type. And I was like, dude, you've been here almost as long as I've been here with me. So I don't know if he subscribes or not, but I told him you should join me on a live. Maybe he's here. I forget the audio something. All right, so we're at chapter 17, and it's called The Parting Glass. And this is the chapter before the big event, which is, man, maybe I can get through it tonight. All right, in the summer of 1963, President Kennedy flew to Europe for what would be the final overseas trip of his life. Although he left Washington, although he had left Washington, the forces of political tumult set loose by his presidency followed him abroad. These forces came swirling together in Rome during JFK's official visit to the ancient imperial capital, where tour guides still pointed out the stone steps in which Julius Caesar's blood was spilled. On the sultry evening of July 1st, Kennedy was feted by Italian President Antonio Segni. Segni? Wouldn't it be weird if it was Segni? Okay, at a palace, and it starts with a Q, the official residence of the popes, kings, and chiefs of states since the 16th century. At the formal banquet, watched over by the extravagantly uniformed Corazzieri honor guard in their torso-hugging white tunics and gold helmets with flowing horsetails. Oh, helmets with flowing horsetails. Segni paid tribute during his toast to Kennedy's recent peace speech at American University. Kennedy's dynamic quest for peace, declared Segni, was a welcome break from the static era of the nuclear deadlock. Oh man, I jumped on here when hi Allie. Yeah, you could doze off to this. That's okay. I love that. Hi Mary, hooray! Lovely to see you. Lovely to see new faces. Somebody was like, "Ma'am, this is a Wendy's." I rattled off. That was funny to me though. Anyway, I started rambling to nobody, and then there were people here. Oh, sweet lady. Did it tell you to do that again? Again? Thank you. Did it prompt you to do that? Amazing. Anyway, all right, I love it. Those things are my favorite. They'll always tickle me a bit, I guess. Okay, after Segni concluded his welcoming remarks, JFK stood up and reiterated his peace message, telling the assembled reasonably, remarks is above it. This is dyslexia in action. So telling the assembled dignitaries that war is not inevitable and that an effective end to the arms race would offer greater security than its indefinite continuation. Invoking Italy's volatile political history, Kennedy then warned of the siren temptation of those seemingly swift and easy answers on the far right and the far left. It was up to those who had advocated social justice and progress and human rights. It says it was up to those who advocate for those things, said Kennedy, to make the more difficult ideals of democracy a reality for people all over the world. Kennedy's Italian come on now. The whole Milk King reparations so they can buy preparation H. I mean, I imagine that's like a pretty banging hook for some kind of song. Very educational. That's what we do here. I just read to you. This is my book club. You stumbled upon a book club, and we're reading The Devil's Chessboard. And we're getting to the good stuff. We fought through a whole lot of background for this event that's coming up. It was interesting. Who's talking about it today? What's his name? Valhalla? I look like I campaigned for calling my hair. No. In global warming and star signs. You always wanted to stumble upon a book club? I love that. I love that that happened. I've never been in like a real life one, and I always wanted to. And I tried to start a couple, and nobody wanted to with me. So I found some friends here. And I love that byproduct of it. I didn't think that would ever happen. But it's rad. I get to like read like an amateur and just be myself and ask questions, and I look up words that I don't know in front of people who probably have, I mean, I know several of my regular viewers and hangouters have such a wonderful, extensive vocabulary, Anyway, I learn all the time. And I do that openly and honestly in a vulnerable way here. Yeah, dude, that one hurt my feelings a little. You look like you think abortion is healthcare. You know, I lost a lot of friends showing people an ultrasound of what an abortion looks like. I think everybody should see it. I think it should be taught in schools, as gnarly as it is to look at. Everybody should know that shit. Anyway. And doesn't it feel a bit like the sacrament of Satan? Thank you, Mary. I have my cheerleaders. I appreciate that you guys show up with me for this. It means the world, Miss Mary and Allie. Are there insults? Oh, it's just that guy. I think he's joking. I feel like you look like you want a global carbon tax. Do I look like my septum ring is like I left it on the counter or something? Anyway, oh yeah, we're here for the books. For the book. Where was I? Oh yeah. Here, I'm going to try and pronounce the Q word for where that dude lives. So, Quirinal. Quirinale. How do they say it, I wonder? That's good. Where was I? The Eternal City could be blasé. No. Did I just turn the page? My bad, y'all. Look at what's happened. For real? Dude, am I having a stroke? I'm going to just start this page over again. The only education is self-education. I do have a clutch hoodie. I'm wearing it. Do you want to see what it says on the back? I feel like it's relevant to what we're reading. I hope you can see it. Here, wait. Huh? Oh, man. I hope you can see it. It's their psychic warfare hoodie. It's pretty rad, right? I'm so glad that you noticed and said something, because clutch is my favorite. All right, Kennedy's Italian itinerary, which included an audience with the new Pope, Paul VI, at the Vatican, and a side trip to Naples. Did I only get through one stinking page and it was the first? I thought I read, or did I skip that? Anyway, we're covering it. And we're doing it live, y'all. Thanks, Powderworks. I think so too. I've had it for a long time. All right. The Vatican. At the Vatican, he had an audience with the Pope. Side trip to Naples as the finale to a triumphant European tour that was highlighted by a sentimental stopover in Ireland and his resounding challenge to Soviet tyranny at the Berlin Wall. Ich bin ein Berliner. The crowds in Rome that greeted Kennedy's motorcade were comparatively sparse as the presidential limousine and its police motorcycle squadron made the long and winding trip to the Quirinal. Right. So did I stumble on that in the first page? Yes, I guess so. All right. We're getting our bearings. Along the boulevard and narrow streets of the capital on the trip to the Quirinal. So the Eternal City could be blasé without visiting dignitaries, and the summer heat was sweltering. Yet underneath the city's unruffled exterior ran a shiver of excitement about the visiting American president, who cut such a bella figura, which reminds me of Tom Segura. Is it for real? For real, did Bobby Lee take Christina? If you know Tom Segura. I mean, I get he turned into like a kind of a he turned into kind of a jerk, I guess. But did Christina, is she like dating Bobby Lee? I heard that. Anybody else hear that? Do you even care? Are you on that side of the internet? So, yes. Particularly in contrast to Italy's aging white-haired leaders. Okay, the Bella Figura. So even El Uinta, the Italian Communist Party newspaper, appreciatively noted JFK's tall, tan good looks and his stylish blue-gray suit and purple tie. But as the young American president was taking the spotlight at the Quirinal, the forces aligned against him were converging in Rome. Behind the elaborate festivities at the palace that night was an intense Italian political drama, one with international ramifications. Since the mid-50s, Italy had been hotly debating La Apertura a Sinistra, the opening to the left. La Apertura Sinistra is left, is that right? A political ideal that would peel away the Socialist Party from the traditional Communist Party allies and result in a left-of-center coalition with the ruling Christian Democrats. Pietro Nenni, the wily 72-year-old political survivor who headed the Socialist Party, had been diligently trying to maneuver his party away from its alliance with the Italian communists ever since the Soviet invasion of Hungary in 1956. Nenni hoped that with a forward-looking new president in the White House, the United States, which had quietly dominated Italian politics since World War II, would finally give its blessing to the Apertura. The Eisenhower administration had flatly opposed the opening to the left, seeing a socialist partnership with the Christian Democrats as a slippery slope that would lead to a communist-dominated government in Rome. Eisenhower officials worried that if the socialists were allowed into Italy's government, they would try to steer Rome to a neutral course between Washington and Moscow. Wouldn't that be okay? The CIA, which had a proprietary sensibility about Italy dating back to its well-funded covert campaign to thwart a Communist Party victory in the country's 1948 elections, engaged in its usual schemes along with its allies in the Italian intelligence services to block the Apertura, A-P-E-R-T-U-R-A, so Apertura. Anyway, the aperture is the word that I see, and it's the left opening. It said over here, opening to the left. All right. The agency's anti-left strategy in Italy was spearheaded by Jim Angleton, who, with his deep personal roots in the country, had turned Rome into a key Cold War battleground. The Eisenhower administration resistance to the Apertura was further enforced by Claire Booth Luce, Ike's ambassador to Rome. It was Arthur Schlesinger who convinced President Kennedy to break with Eisenhower's policy and support Italy's opening to the left. Thank goodness they wrote it in English there. So, my impression is that Nenni has honestly broken with the communists, the White House aide informed Kennedy in a March 1962 memo. Schlesinger had his own sentimental attachment to Italy dating back to his boyhood, when his father offered sanctuary to Harvard's history department to an anti-Mussolini exile, Gaetano Salvemini, an Italian socialist politician and historian. Angleton was so furious about the new tilt in favor of Nenni's socialists, comma, there should be a comma there, that began telling people that Schlesinger was a Soviet agent. He was so furious that he began, there should be a comma there. Anyway, meanwhile, former Ambassador Luce lobbied frantically against the Apertura, dashing off a long, somewhat incoherent letter to JFK in February of 1963, filled with random observations about the growing threat from the left in Rome. Italy's pro-West government had one foot on the Moscow banana peel for 17 years, she observed. If the pro-communist socialists were brought into power, the Italian Communist Party will negotiate Italy's future with the USSR. Luce concluded by warning the president not to fall into the left-wing trap during his visit to Rome. In the present climate, there's no real possibility. There is a real possibility that you may be very embarrassed by the enthusiastic reception you will get from the communists. I can see the banners now. Vivo Kennedy and Khrushchev. Frustrated by the stubborn bureaucratic resistance that Kennedy was receiving from within his own government to his shifting policies on Italy, Schlesinger sent the president an angry memo in January of 1963. Lest you think you run the U.S. government, the Italy matter is still under debate, the White House aide acidly remarked. But President Kennedy eventually ignored the political pushback and embraced Italy's apertura. He became so enamored of the idea of building a strong center-left coalition to anchor Italy's turbulent policies that he arranged for United Auto Workers leader Walter and Victor Reuther to whom he had strong political ties, to help fund Nenni's party. Jeez, I'm frustrating myself. So the JFK trip to Rome gave him the opportunity to officially anoint the opening to the left. Gross. To anoint the opening to the left? Why is that? That seems gross to me. What's happening? Thank you. How does it look in a ponytail? I don't like it. It would look pulled back. We were talking about the Devil's Chessboard, Allen Dulles in the 60s. Or in the 60s is chaos. The rise of America's secret government. Very relevant. Very, very relevant. We're getting the framework of what's going on today. We're reading about how the assassinations and all the colluding and the plotting and the secret, clandestine government ops used to work. They used to work, but this was before the internet. So, and now we get to see why they are doing some of the things they're doing and telling us in our face. They're gaslighting us because they don't think we could actually go see it. Maybe they just don't understand that we can. It is a good read. I've got a whole playlist. I've got a playlist full of videos from this far back, but we're really getting into the good stuff. You don't have to get caught up. JFK was our last America First Patriot president. This was, I think, 2015. Let me look. For sure, JFK is the GOAT, and they killed him for it. This was 2015. And you want to know, this was already on my radar. Wasn't it Craig? Craig told me I should look into this, and I looked into it, and then I was listening to Canvas and Hunter Biden talk, and he brought it up, and I was like, I better check it out. In the beginning, read a little like Schindler's List, but I think we're getting into, and all of it has a little hint of propaganda. Like they're giving you some secrets, but they're hiding more propaganda in it, saying they're revealing some truths. If that makes sense. I don't know. I could have probably said that better. Apertura, he loved him, right? Italy fraught, blah, blah, blah. He snapped a shot. No, okay, we're going back. After dinner at the the Q place, Kennedy used the rest of the evening to quietly communicate his views to the leading Italian political figures gathered at the event. As the president strolled along the gravel paths of the lush palace garden, he was approached by various politicians and officials, including Palmiro Togliatti, the head of Italy's potent Communist Party, with whom he exchanged a few words. When the Italian news photographer snapped a shot of the two men in conversation, Kennedy later asked him for the film, concerned about the impact the photo might have in Italy's fraught political climate. Amazingly, the photographer obliged the American president. In a far corner of the garden, a low wooden platform bathed in spotlights had been set up for the president to hold private audiences with Italy's dignitaries. The longest conversation that Kennedy held that evening was with the old socialist warrior Pietro Nenni, as the two men huddled together on the little stage Thank God for the internet. The deep state would walk. I got my chat GPT finally today to admit what Israel is doing in Gaza is a genocide. And it took a while. I have it though. I was thinking about posting it. If you wanted to go through it, because there was like, I'm like, the evidence that you've been programmed to lie is that you could not look at it logically until I prompted you to. And I'm like, and we developed AI in order to help us analyze data and think logically about specific things. Like, you know, it's called progress. Yeah, but, and then, so the things that we think benefit us then enslave us in different ways. And yes, that checks out. You can get it to say anything. I don't know, man. We've argued. But I don't doubt that. There's got to be some. Anyway. Okay, did I already go in a far corner of the garden? A low wooden platform bathed in spotlights had been set up for the president to hold a private audience with Italy's dignitaries. The longest conversation he held that night was with Nenni. Okay. As the two men huddled together on the stage, their faces nearly touching, their faces nearly touching. That's a little bit gay. Sorry, I was just joking. That was childish. They were a study in contrasts. Kennedy, tall and youthful, glamorous. Nenni, diminutive, bespectacled, and balding. But Nenni clearly felt he had found a political soulmate in Kennedy. The previous year, Nenni had tweaked the U.S. foreign policy establishment with an essay in Foreign Affairs in which he defended the party's neutralist stand in the Cold War and attacked Western imperialism, charging U.S. and European governments with backing fascist-type dictatorships. Weird. It's almost like that's never happened before, and it's not currently, it's certainly not still happening, right? They've spent hundreds of millions of dollars in shoring up rotten situations doomed in any case to crumble. Wrote the Italian. They have opened doors to communists instead of supporting democratic and socialist forces that were capable of directing the impulse to freedom of the colonial peoples. Now, as a long line of other Italian politicians waited impatiently to speak with Kennedy, Nenni was engaged in rapt conversation with an American president who had voiced the same sentiments. When his audience with Kennedy finally came to an end, Nenni was absolutely enraptured and happy as he could be, according to U.S. Embassy officials who were there. Stepping off the platform, the old man wrapped his arms around his wife and murmured something into her ear. As they walked away, Nenni wiped tears from his eyes. Oh, he was that kind of president, man. Later, Nenni's wife told a group of American diplomats attending the Quirinal event that her husband had been enchanted by JFK. The socialist leader was convinced that his political dream was about to come true. After years of determined U.S. resistance, Italy's democratic left was at last to become part of the government. Okay, yes. I stumble. I think I messed up. I didn't. I have to go and backtrack. Therein lies the mess up. Thank you. Dude, I already worked in the education industry, and I will never, and I homeschool my kids now. If what was something they recently, what did James say? Dude, so does Israel. So were we indoctrinating people funded by USAID, PBS, freaking, anyway. Where was I? He was enchanted. He was enchanted. Enchanted by JFK. The socialist leader was convinced, yes, we've become part of the government. All right, the president, too, thought his trip to Rome was a considerable success, telling Schlesinger on his return to Washington that he had a good talk with Nenni, and adding, "So far as I could see, everyone in Italy is for an opening to the left." But Allen Dulles and his old cohorts in the CIA's Rome station did not share the president's enthusiasm for the Italian political developments, and they boldly communicated their dissent to Christian Democratic officials. This is a remarkable and until now unreported story, one that sheds new light on the growing fissures in the Kennedy administration. Shortly after JFK flew home from Italy, Dino John Pionzio, the CIA's leading operator in Italy at the time, huddled with Sereno Frito, the administrative secretary of Aldo Moro, a rising star in the Christian Democratic Party who would soon become Italy's prime minister. Pionzio, a Skull and Bones member at Yale, weird, class of 1950 and zealous Cold Warrior, and was adamantly opposed to the opening to the left. The CIA man wanted to know what Moro had discussed with Kennedy a few days earlier during an afternoon stroll that JFK and the Italian politician had taken through the Quirinal garden. To his great dismay, Pionzio was told that Moro and Kennedy had agreed the apertura should go forward. Dulles and the CIA felt they had a proprietary relationship with the Christian Democrats ever since those early Cold War days when the agency began funneling money to the Italian party. Dulles himself had confirmed this arrangement when he was CIA director during a secret meeting with Moro that was held in Frito's Rome office. Following his meeting, the Christian Democratic Party became the beneficiary of CIA funds that arrived promptly on a monthly schedule. By early 1960s, the party was receiving 60 million lire a month, about 100,000, from the spy agency. In the beginning, it was Frito who collected the cash in large suitcases, a duty that later fell to other administrative secretaries of the party. These monthly CIA payoffs to the party were in addition to the under-the-table contributions made to the Christian Democrats during various political campaigns. Pionzio, it's probably like Pionzio or something, Pionzio's meeting with Frito put the Christian Democrats on notice. Their budding alliance with the socialists did not enjoy full support in Washington, particularly in national security circles. Afterward, Moro, who had received conflicting messages from Kennedy and the CIA within a matter of days, could be forgiven if he was confused about who was actually running the U.S. government. The CIA's attempt to subvert the apertura was one more flagrant example of how the agency sought to undermine the Kennedy presidency as well as Italian democracy. In November of '63, Aldo Moro finally formed a coalition government with the socialists. Let me read ahead a second. I keep falling behind. I feel like I'm seeing the word in front of the word I read out loud. That's how I read normally. And when I start falling behind, I'm like checking to see if I got the word right instead of anticipating the word coming next. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but I'm going to start over. In November 1963, Aldo Moro finally formed a coalition government with the socialists, despite the less than enthusiastic reaction from Christian Democrats patrons at the CIA. Socialist leaders hoped that the historic center-left partnership would lead to a new golden age of social progress for Italy, but their dreams were not fulfilled. Even before JFK's assassination on November 22nd, the die-hard opponents of the apertura in the CIA and Italian intelligence agencies or services were actively conspiring to sabotage the deal. When William K. Harvey arrived in Italy in summer of 1963 to take over the Rome CIA station, the offensive against democracy in Italy and the United States took a dark turn. This feels like a lot of stuff. I read the protocols. YouTube keeps pulling them. but those were written in 1905. In 1907, what was that? Something happened in 1907. I looked it up today and I was like, wouldn't that be funny if it coincided with the turn of the century then? Because it seemed like that was the start of a major slope downward into clandestine, secret, shadow, this kind of stuff. Okay, Ian always talks about him. It's Valhalla. Somebody tell me his, let me look at my history. Because I was watching, I've seen like clips. Where do I see history if I'm not on my phone? Let's go to my channel. History. Something Valhalla. Valhalla VFT. Dude was a Green Beret, and he said, he was talking about Kennedy today, and I was like, man, come see my, I'm like, I don't know. I don't want, unless you stumble upon this and we connect and stuff, I don't figure you'd want to sit through my readings. Even though Mary, she's so nice to me and says, oh, are you enjoying this? I'm so glad. Oh, it makes sense. I'm so glad. Manda. Do you know I have friends who call me Mander? What? All right, so Valhalla VFT, they were talking all about and how that was probably the last true patriot, America First president we've ever had. The last. And the old man I was talking to today was talking about how it was Lyndon B. Johnson who must have done it. And I'm like, I don't ever think it's one person with these guys. There's always a crowd. Coalition government. Did I already go down? But their dreams were not fulfilled even before JFK's assassination. Right. All right. He arrived. The offensive against democracy in Italy and the United States took a dark turn. All right. New section. The parting glass. Bill Harvey was an odd choice for Rome Station Chief. William K. Harvey is Bill. He spoke no Italian and had no affinity for the Italian people or interest in their history and culture. A gruff, bulbous man with a frog-like voice, was born and raised in a small Indiana town and had none of the cosmopolitan Polish of his Ivy League-bred CIA colleagues. Harvey began his intelligence career as an FBI gumshoe, but his hard-drinking habits did not go down well in J. Edgar Hoover's stern nanny culture. And he jumped ship for the newly formed CIA in 1947. The blunt-spoken pistol-packing Harvey was not a good fit for the CIA either, but the agency would find ways to put him to use. Dulles and Helms thought he had a cop mentality. Harvey, in turn, dismissed the CIA's upper echelons as Fifth Avenue cowboys and fucking mamby-pambies. He has no hayseed, he felt obliged to remind colleagues. He had been raised by a single mother who became a full professor in Indiana State University and he had a law degree. He liked to rattle the agency's Ivy League types during meetings by pulling out one of the many guns he owned, spinning the cylinder and checking the load as if he were about to use it. And from his days as an FBI red hunter, commie hunter. Anyway, when he tracked down communists and fellow travelers in Washington, Harvey became convinced that high society was riddled with traitors. Let me put my light on. Maybe it'll help a little. Does it? Mamby-pambies. I know. Yes. I love it when they type out stuff like that. I get to read out loud. It says, quote, fucking mamby-pambies. You know, this is education. This is for educational purposes, not entertainment. All right, from his days, I already said it. Harvey's class resentments had no doubt played a role when he became the first CIA official to sniff out Kim Philby, the witty, urbane, Cambridge-educated double agent who was stationed in Washington from 1949 to 51. At one of Philby's liquor-soaked parties, Guy Burgess, the most flamboyant member of the Cambridge spy ring, drew a lewd, crotch-bearing caricature. He drew a lewd, crotch-bearing caricature of Harvey's wife, Libby, a boozed Indiana gal who never fit into the CIA social set. A drunken Harvey threw himself at Burgess and had to be pulled away by Angleton. It was the Indiana cop who saw through Philby, not Angleton, who remained forever beguiled by his British friend. All right. Angleton and Harvey were the odd couple of CIA counterintelligence, the poet and the cop, as one observer called them. They would alternately. Alter does mix up as later, or if you do an A and they're sending with K. Oh no, it is. They would alternately clash and connive together throughout their careers. So, Harvey's star rose at the agency after he exposed Philby, and he was dispatched to the Cold War front lines in Germany, where he ran the CIA's Berlin station during the 50s. His reputation continued to grow as he constantly searched for new ways to take the battle to the Soviet enemy. While in Germany, Harvey worked closely with Reinhard Gehlen's notorious organization, and Gehlen came to consider him a very esteemed and really reliable friend. The Berlin Spy Tunnel, an underground surveillance project that wormed its way into the city's Russian sector, permitting the CIA to eavesdrop on enemy communications, as Harvey's most dramatic coup. Dulles, who always had a soft spot for espionage theatrics, called Harvey's Tunnel one of the most daring and valuable operations ever. Doesn't that stick out a little? Espionage theatrics. You know, I dug into today, I didn't really dig, but I started traipsing the edge of maybe a wormhole. And maybe you might want to look into this too. Flash mobs are generally coordinated online. And so I was trying to weigh back some flash mob data, if there was any. Turns out there's a big flash mob scene in Utah. Almost anywhere. If you dig in, you'll see that there's, you can access it. I don't know. I haven't really dug in anywhere except for in Colorado and in, what are we talking about? Utah. What was it? Joy Mob or something? Anyway, couldn't dig. Plus, they probably had that shit scrubbed. Or it was on, well, think about it. How many people showed up to UVU wearing hats and maroon shirts, jeans, and chucks? There were so many Tyler lookalikes. All they had to do was choose who was where when. They had all the cameras. They had a guy laying on the roof. If they wanted to do it, was the roof shot. They had somebody with a gun elsewhere, somebody down here with a pistol. They knew they were using a not 100% reliable shape charge. They're like, this may go wrong, so let's cover our bases a little. Just makes sense. I mean, I'd love to, witness one up close. That would be crazy cool. But not if somebody died about it. Harvey's Star, the Berlin Spy Tunnel. Oh yeah, we were talking about espionage theatrics. Harvey's Tunnel, one of the most daring and valuable operations ever, even though the Soviets quickly discovered the subterranean project, began using it to feed disinformation to the Americans. Despite Harvey's crude way and his penchant for intemperate action, Dulles, who needed action heroes to boost the agency's image, helped turn him into a CIA legend, awarding him the Distinguished Intelligence Medal, the agency's highest accolade. Dulles brought Harvey back to Washington in 1959. By then he had a second wife, Clara Grace, or CG, apparently that's how she's referred to. Harvey, a big, vivacious woman who had enjoyed her own successful career in the U.S. military and CIA. One of C.G. Harvey's secret assignments involved accompanying former Nazi rocket scientists, plural, including Werner von Braun, and their families on flights to the United States, where they were put to work on U.S. missile and space projects, where Bill and C.G., whom he called Mommy, gross, returned home. Did they have kids? Oh my God. They brought with them their adopted daughter. Okay, question answered immediately. Ask and ye shall find. Anyway, something like that. Seek. Gross, that threw me off. He called her Mommy. So they brought their adopted daughter, Sally, whom they found as an infant when she was left in a cardboard shoebox at the doorstep of their West Berlin home. Sure, she did. I bet you that girl came from Romania, because that seems to be old money. That seems to be a long-standing tradition. Mostly Tool covers. What band? Powder? Is that who they are? That rings a bell. Heck yeah. Anyway. I love me some Tool, man. I saw them when I was 17. They opened up for them. No, the Melvins opened up for them, of course, in Reno, Nevada. That was amazing. So, back in Washington, Harvey had high ambitions. He wanted to run the agency's Soviet division, a top post that he thought he had earned by his aggressive performance in Germany. But the CIA elite, who continued to think of him as a cop, steered him into tougher, rougher assignments. Dulles named Harvey chief of the agency's Division D, the unit in charge of signals intelligence, gathering information through various means of electronic eavesdropping. And they call the app they use at the Pentagon, they use the Signal app. Anyway, okay, your name is Powder. What am I thinking of? That made me think of something. Tool covers. Wouldn't that be crazy if there was like a band called Powder and their singer was bald and like gaunt and stringy and like albino almost? You have 2 ears and a heart. Are you guys connecting? Are you fighting, or are you becoming best friends? Or do you know each other? I have to listen, I don't like doing this on camera. So hang tight a second. The ladder, you're coming, but yeah, stepfathers, stepbrothers. Put your balls on my drum set. Drum kit, he says. All right. Alps. I wish my my can had an Alps sticker on it. I should just pull one off and put it on so I can rep. They don't pay me to. I just love them. Alps. Do you know that nicotine helps with ADHD symptoms? And it kills all viruses, including malaria and COVID. They said smokers never got long COVID. Just saying. Chief agency means electronic eavesdropping. That's right, signal chat, which the CIA shared with the National Security Agency. But Division D also seemed to have more mysterious functions. Division D would be a good band name also. In October 1960, according to one agency document, Harvey made a trip to Europe that was largely intended for him to recruit criminal underworld figures for secret CIA missions. Among those he sought out were safecrackers and break-in specialists. Harvey would soon be dealing with men whose skills were of a more violent nature. In November of 61, Harvey was put in charge of the top secret CIA operation to kill Castro, codenamed ZR-Rifle. He quickly nudged aside Bob Maheu, the independent contractor the CIA had originally hired to run its murder racket in the Caribbean, and began working directly with Mafia ambassador at large Johnny Rosselli. See, he sounds legit. Johnny Rosselli, of course he's the Mafia ambassador at large. He was born for it. Who's Chris? How's it going? Hi, Sam. Hi, guys. Aw. You were hitting the hookah last night. Man, I just love smoking too. This isn't for the kids. I love smoking. I love smoking cigarettes. I remember being the tiniest of little kids, and I started smoking real young though. I was stealing them from my dad and my aunties. What can you do? Felt like it followed me from a previous life, even, never mind. So, but I do also believe that tobacco in its purest form, it was the grandfather plant teacher. So the guy who was telling me I looked super like a Democrat earlier, it's because I'm a lifelong Democrat, but now I'm libertarian. I was stoked to vote for Trump too. I've fucking voted for him and thought, wow, we could actually have somebody who's not a corrupt politician in there, and they turned him into a corrupt politician, and he's done backflips for days, for a whole year, just solid. Like, don't you get dizzy, friend? You're old too. Why do we have, anyway, they were talking about that too, Valhalla VFT. So I liked that, and I've heard Ian talk about them a lot, but now I've subscribed and I'm going to keep watching. I keep doing this. It's my bad. The Berlin Spy Tunnel. I already read that. Oh, there's CG. Mommy. He calls her mommy. He calls his wife mommy. I guess they do have kids, so maybe. Mom works, though, doesn't it? Mommy. Yeah, I know. They've been doing it. So is he in cahoots with John Bray? Big disappointment. Yep. I'm glad you see it. I mean, I was stoked. I'm like, this is somebody they couldn't buy. I saw some of his speeches in the Middle East, like from his first. It was Charlie Kirk who coaxed me out of it. I went to the BLM protest, like, you know, in the first month of COVID, and I showed up early with some friends, and we saw all the pallets of bricks, and I saw a police car that was already destroyed. I'm like, this feels like a movie set. And then I saw undercover cops provoking the National Guard that was there and trying to incite violence. And the rest of the people who were gathered there were not trying to be violent. And it was just very awkward. And it made me like realize, oh man, a whole lot of this outrage was coordinated and orchestrated, and it was implemented. And I had to deprogram myself. And I guess I still am a little. Yeah, dude, some sublime. Perth. It is heartbreaking when you wake up and then you see all the people still asleep around you. It makes you kind of want to isolate for a while, and then you realize, man, I'm going to read books on YouTube, and then you make new friends. So I'm glad you guys are here. I love Australia. I'd love to go visit. That's so good. Epstein didn't Building 7 himself. Yes. Democrats and Republicans, people say that two wings of the same bird, but I don't think they realize. Like, it's the Epstein class versus the rest of us, and that's a global situation. Go look at my new reel. I know it's going to be shadow banned. You're going to have to come to my page or my channel and look for it. Watch that. Watch that. I dare you. And comment if you came from here to that short, so I know that I at least reached somebody. Let's keep going. It's getting good. It's going to get good. Were we about an hour in? We are. I'm going to go a little longer. So, ZR rifle. Okay, the dumpy, baggy-panted cop and the dapper, silver-haired gangster with the tailored suit formed a tight, if unlikely, bond. Harvey invited Rosselli to dinner at his family's spacious Chevy Chase home, where little Sally took to calling him Uncle Johnny. The two men had secret martini-fueled rendezvous in the Miami area, where the CIA maintained its largest station. So ZR Rifle was codenamed to kill Castro. JM Wave, that was the largest station, JM Wave, and operated a bustling network of paramilitary training bases, as well as safe houses in the posh Coral Gables and Key Biscayne neighborhoods. Harvey provided Rosselli with vials of poison and stockpiles of guns to pass along the mafia's hired killers in Cuba. Nothing ever came of the two men's Cuba schemes, and Castro continued to thrive. But Harvey never lost faith in his mafia partner. Regardless of his criminal background, Rosselli was a man of integrity as far as I was concerned. And that's a quote. Harvey would tell Senate investigators years later, a man who was always loyal and dependable in his dealings with me. I loved Rosselli, C.G. Harvey said during an interview in her Indianapolis retirement home in 1999, the year before she died. My husband always used to say that if I had to ride shotgun, that's the guy I would take with me. Much better than any of the law enforcement people. Rosselli was the kind of guy that if he gave you his desires and friendship, well, he was going to stick by you, and he definitely was mafia, and he was definitely a crook, and he definitely had pulled off all kinds of stunts with the mafia, but he was a patriot. He believed in the United States, and he knew my husband was a patriot, and that's what drew him to Bill. In 1962, Helms, who along with Angleton had replaced the retired Dulles at Harvey's main patrons at the agency, and retireds in quotes, mind you. He promoted the agency's tough guy, naming him head of the CIA's entire Cuba operation, Task Force W. Helm and Harvey kept much of the operation, including their assassination efforts against Castro, a secret from President Kennedy, as well as from CIA Director McCone. Harvey grew deeply contemptuous of the Kennedy brothers, whom he regarded as rich boys who were playing with the nation's security. He concluded that their subversion program aimed at overthrowing Castro's regime, codenamed Operation Mongoose, was all for show. Harvey thought so little of the man JFK put in charge of Mongoose, Air Force Officer Edward Lansdale, that he would lift his ass in the middle of their meetings and let loose a fart or pull a knife and begin to trim his nails. Harvey came to hate Bobby Kennedy, the CIA overseer who was constantly nipping at his heels. Most of all, RFK browbeat Harvey so severely during one White House meeting on Cuba that Max Taylor later told the Attorney General, "You could sack a town and enjoy it." Harvey took to calling RFK that fucker and began suggesting that some of the Attorney General's actions bordered on treason. Bobby Kennedy and my husband were absolute enemies. Just pure enemies, recalled C.G. Harvey in her retirement home, channeling Bill Harvey's deep resentments years later. Quote, Bobby was an idiot, and he had no confidence in himself because his brother put him in a job that he really wasn't capable of handling. It made for a lot of stress for the people who were working in law enforcement. The tension between the two men finally exploded in October of 1962 when Harvey schemed with the Pentagon to send a series of raiding parties into Cuba at the height of the missile crisis to pave the way for the U.S. military invasion that administration hardliners hoped was imminent. RFK was outraged by Harvey's reckless behavior in the midst of the hair-trigger nuclear crisis. You were dealing with people's lives, the younger Kennedy brother later exclaimed, and then you're going to go off with a half-assed operation such as this? Harvey's protectors acted quickly before Bobby Kennedy could axe him. Helms realized that he would have to Helms realized that he would have to relieve Harvey of the Cuba command and hustle him out of Washington. Giving him Rome was Angleton's idea. Angleton thought the CIA station there had gone soft and was not doing enough to snoop on Soviet skullduggery in the Eternal City, and not working hard enough to block the opening to the left. Harvey's ruthlessness had not played well with the Kennedys in Washington, but it was just what Angleton wanted in Rome. Helm and Angleton did not tell McCone about Harvey's new assignment until it was a fait accompli. They knew that McCone was something of a snob and a Puritan, in the words of an aide, the kind of executive who liked to keep his hands clean, and the down and dirty Harvey just wasn't his cup of tea. Many imperial agents of America would have regarded Rome as a dream assignment, but Harvey and his wife never took to Italy. They were fond of Germany, and they didn't like anything about Rome. According to one CIA officer, Bill despised the Italian people, whom he called goddamn wops. CG complained about being constantly cheated by the locals whenever she went to the market, and she couldn't get used to navigating through narrow cobblestone streets in the family's hulking Ford station wagon. Once, when CG was driving Sally and the daughter of another CIA officer along the ancient Appian Way on their way to the beach, she snarled, "I just don't understand why they don't bulldoze all this and make it a freeway." Like her husband, who would sit with his back to the wall whenever he dined out in Rome, his .38 revolver within easy reach, CG also felt besieged by enemies. She claimed that people in a communist compound near the Harveys' villa would throw rats over the wall into their garden, forcing CG to chase the scurrying vermin out of the family dining room. According to CG, one of her husband's less savory tasks was procuring prostitutes for President Kennedy while he was in Rome. Yeah, right. She hated him. Or he hated him. So when Jack was in Rome visiting the embassy, my husband had to assign 2 men along with the Secret Service men who were protecting him. And those 2 men were required to get Italian prostitutes into Jack's bed, 2 at a time. That man had back trouble. He ain't romping 2 chicks at a time. I mean, I know he got some Maryland. The driver, isn't that guy? Isn't that the guy? They said it the other night, and I was like, I gotta remember that name. Who was it? Was it on Tucker? I mean, the Kennedys were a lousy group of people. I mean, they were really scum. Who said that? Oh, CG. Despite JFK's reputation for sexual adventurism, it is highly unlikely that the president would have relied on a notoriously anti-Kennedy CIA officer whom his brother loathed and distrusted to act as his pimp. Nor had Harvey even taken command of the Rome operation by the time of Kennedy's visit. It was, in fact, Harvey who seemed to indulge in the reckless sex life in Rome. Rumors about his sexual indiscretion circulated throughout the Rome station, including a story that Harvey had impregnated his young secretary. While stationed in Rome, the Harveys were quartered in a lovely fawn-colored villa on Janiculum Hill, owned by the American Academy. Galileo once stargazed in the villa gardens. Interesting, but Bill and CG had little interest in ancient history. They spent a lot of time and money redecorating the house. In poor taste, observed Harvey's deputy, F. Mark Wyatt. If the Harveys were the stereotypical ugly Americans, Wyatt and his wife, Anne, were ideal representatives of the United States. The Wyatts, who had fallen in love with Rome after the war when they were both young CIA agents, let me see. There. I'll put more. Does that even register a shift in the light? Oh, honey. Well, shoot. I wish that guy didn't give you the... You do... So, never mind. I worked in the music industry for quite a while. At least 12 years of touring. Tour management and merchandise and sales and babysitting. Every industry, yep. All of life has, you get to choose. You're always being made to choose because it's always waggling in front of your face. You guys, thank you for sticking with me. I'm glad to see your faces, your names still scrolling. All right. And well, when I do vertical, I don't have the option to save the live chat. I wish I could. Maybe I can go through and edit it later. I don't know all the edits you can do. I'm new at this still, and I just upload. Sexual discretions, Galileo, in poor taste. They were ugly, stereotypical ugly Americans. Okay, Wyatt and his wife Anne were ideal representatives. Okay. The Wyatts, who had fallen in love with Rome after the war when they were both young CIA agents, were enchanted by the city and spoke Italian fluently. Anne Wyatt took her 3 young children on rambling tours of Rome, tracked down works by Caravaggio and other masters in galleries and churches, and stumbling upon one of the sets where Cleopatra was being filmed at the time. One night, the Wyatts bumped into Marcello Mastriani in a restaurant and brought home his autograph. He must have been hot shit. Mark Wyatt, who enjoyed good relations with local officials, was supposed to act as a buffer between the brusque Harvey and the CIA's counterparts in Italian intelligence. But Harvey soon bowled his way into the china shop and began throwing his bulk around. Italy's military intelligence unit, SIFAR, SIFAR, I don't want to say it. It spells it out, but it's all Italian. Or the Defense Information Service had a long subservient relationship with the CIA, providing the Americans with the results of the spying on Italian political figures and partnering with the United States and Operation Gladio, the secret stay-behind army program to resist left-wing advances in Europe. Jeez. I'm yawning. Where are we at? Oh. And artichoke. Divining rod. Yep, I'm glad to see so many people know. I'm glad you know. But now Harvey pushed SIFAR officials to take even more aggressive action. The CIA station chief urged Colonel Renzo Rocca, a top SIFAR counter-espionage chief, to sabotage the center-left partnership that had gained decisive momentum with after Kennedy's visit. Harvey pushed Rocca to use his action squads to carry out bombings of Christian Democratic Party offices and newspapers, terrorist acts that were to be blamed on the left. Kind of like the Charlie Kirk assassination, being blamed on the left. They want us fighting left and right when it's really the Epstein class against the rest of us. Thanks, Sam. That's so nice. I was a little disappointed in it. Anytime I hear it, I kind of feel a little bit of disappointment, but, you know, we are who we are. Yeah, the Kundalini serpent. Well, that's the Caduceus symbol also. Sam and Powder, thank you. Panama City, Florida. Thank you for your service. I'm so glad that you think my voice is soothing. Stick around. You can hang out with us when we go live. I do it mostly every day. Come hang out. This is my favorite time, too. This is my time I get to come and read. And because you guys keep me reading, because you show up to hear me read, I continue reading, and I like that. So, and I get to warm up. Oh my God. I took a picture of it. And I read my kid, we're working through the Hardy Boys books right now. And the one of the Hardy Boys said that he pulled a boner, like a bonehead move. but he called it a boner, and I had to try and keep it together because my kids were going to want to explanation as to why I was laughing, and I couldn't help it. They do want the left and right to fight. It is the Epstein class. We need to fight. Yeah. No, they didn't. The case is a joke. And it's almost a humiliation ritual for the rest of us. Like, you think that you have a justice system? Look at what we can do. Look at how we can just dictate it. And everybody up there on the witness stand was dumbfounded. They looked like they were under duress. They were frightened, answering questions under oath. The implications must have been staggering. And the whatever they had on them, and some of them, there was two girls, like a forensic tech or somebody else, and then an investigator. Both of them were like, no, I never, oh, that was in my notes. Those were in my personal notes that you have. No, I didn't write that. I don't remember writing that. But if they're there, I guess they were there and just went along with it. And it's like, wow. Wow. My dad was a defense attorney, a lifelong criminal defense attorney. And he taught me how to speak English, you know, and I always was so interested in what he was doing. Oh, that it's not as much book left as I thought, because a lot of this is indexed. There it is. That's it. That's all that's left. All right. Anyway, but I digress. Here we go. Yes, terrorists that were blamed on the left. So Wyatt was no shrinking violet when it came to covert action. He had served as a CIA bagman during the 1948 elections in Italy, handing over suitcases filled with cash to Italian officials in the luxurious Hotel Hassler, overlooking the Spanish Steps. Later, Wyatt was one of the main liaison agents between the CIA and Operation Gladio, frequently visiting the secret Gladio headquarters in the island of Sardinia. Nor was Wyatt one of those delicate desk heroes who had never risked his life. He had grown up on the farm country around Sacramento, picking fruit after school for his father's cannery. During the war, while serving as a young Navy officer in the South Pacific, Wyatt's ship was attacked by Japanese submarines and kamikaze planes, and had seen men blown to bloody mist before his eyes. But Wyatt had his limits when it came to carrying out Harvey's orders. Not only did Bill Harvey see nothing wrong with violating Italian sovereignty, but he saw murder as a legitimate political tool. One day, Wyatt was stunned to hear his boss propose recruiting mafia hitmen to kill Italian communist officials. When Wyatt objected to his extreme suggestion, Harvey would fly into a rage. During one angry showdown between the two men, Harvey pulled a gun on Wyatt. Harvey's secret efforts to subvert Italy's center-left government reached a climax in 1964 when General Giovanni Lorenzo, former CFAR director and chief of the Italy's paramilitary police, threatened to overthrow the government. And I'm swearing a lot lately, and at home too. I need to chill. I don't think he needs to walk, though. He signed up for something. He was in a freaking maroon shirt, and he was ditching clothes. There were probably like 20 Tylers. Who knows what? And when they were talking to Lance, they called Tyler Matt, and he just answered. And never did he ask, is this your boyfriend? How long have you been intimate? Did they ask that? I didn't see that, but I didn't sit through all of it. Did they say that? Did they ask him that? Did he say, yes, that was my boyfriend? Did they ask him if he was a furry, if he was trans? Because he sure presented as a blue-collar fucking dude. Pardon my language. He didn't? They didn't say that? Carla Lane? Carla, good to see you. 4K trash? Yeah. Yes, well, and humans, like, that's how we bark, isn't it? We utter pops and accentuating type words. You should have seen me when I tried to learn to play drums. I was saying all the swear words in a sequence. I would list them off. So, but Wyatt had his limits when it came to carrying out Harvey's orders. Murder is a legitimate tool. All right, Harvey's secret efforts to subvert Italy's center-far-left government came to a climax. Oh, yeah. I was further down than I thought. Okay. I'll have to reread that, though. In 1964, when General Giovanni Lorenzo, former CFAR director-in-chief of the Carabinieri, Italy's paramilitary police, threatened to overthrow the government and arrest hundreds of leftist politicians unless socialist officials agreed to abandon their reform proposals and accept a weaker role in the coalition government. The elderly Nenni, who had suffered exile and imprisonment under Mussolini's regime, harbored deep anxieties about a fascist revival in Italy, and he quickly gave in to General Di Lorenzo's demands. Wyatt later insisted that he had no involvement in the coup plot, but Lorenzo was widely considered a stooge of the CIA, and there's little doubt that Harvey played a role in the brusque and successful efforts to intimidate Italian democracy. By then, Kennedy was dead and could not protect Italy's fragile political experiment, as he had intervened against French military push in 1961. When Nenni anxiously asked Schlesinger, who visited Rome in the spring of '64, whether the new American president, Lyndon Johnson, could be counted on to continue JFK's Italy policies, Schlesinger had to give the old man the chilling truth. Oh, are we asking about the book? I'm so glad. Welcome, Carla. I have a whole playlist. And if you go to, I've got different playlists. I read the books of Enoch, the Tavistock Institute, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, but those keep getting pulled off YouTube. Wow. I like lake living. Anyway, so yeah, this is it. This is the book. I've gone through this much. This is part 23. So, and they're about an hour to an hour and a half long. And we're at, all right. Elderly Nenni, yes, the chilling truth. So Mark Wyatt was attending a meeting at the Gladio base in Sardinia with Bill Harvey when he heard that President Kennedy had been shot at high noon in Dallas. When the telex arrived, is that a communication, telex? I want to look that up. What is telex? Nope, wrong page. T-E-L-E-X. T-E-L-E-X. Meaning, machine, release. What's the meaning? Short for Teleprinter Exchange, international communications network of teleprinters that allow users to type and send text-based messages directly to one another over telephone lines or radio waves. So it's the first text messaging machine, a telex. Hand me the telex. No, it's a whole, it looks like a whole desk. I wish I could show you. This is why I'm gonna get an encoder. Here, let me just show you quick what I'm looking at here. See, look at that's a telex machine. Anyway, sorry about the banging. Whoa. Anyway, so when he got the telex, where's that telex? When the telex arrived in the early evening local time, Wyatt found Harvey collapsed in bed following a late afternoon round of martinis. After Wyatt managed to rouse him, the CIA station chief blurted out some provocative remarks about the event in Dallas that deeply disturbed Wyatt for the rest of his life. According to his 3 children, Wyatt, who died in 2006 at 86, would always suspect that Harvey had some prior knowledge of the Kennedy assassination or was in some way involved. Quote, "My dad would sometimes talk about Harvey in the context of the Kennedy assassination," said Wyatt's son Tom. He talked about the connection between Harvey and the Mafia, and not just his involvement with Johnny Rosselli, but with the Mafia in Italy. Those connections in Italy worried my father a lot. Wyatt's suspicions about his Rome boss were so strong that his daughter, Susan, encouraged him to testify before the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1978. But he couldn't bring himself to do it. My father really believed in CIA. He really wanted to believe in it, and he was loyal to it, despite all its flaws, Susan recalled. And he really didn't want to go do things that would hurt it. But Wyatt continued to be haunted by Harvey and the Kennedy assassination late into his life. In 1998, when a French investigative journalist named Fabrizio Calvi came to interview Wyatt about Operation Gladio at his retirement home in California's Lake Tahoe. I grew up by Lake Tahoe. Keep Tahoe blue. I want to get a sticker for my car. So the former CIA official felt compelled to raise the subject out of the blue. As Calvi was leaving, he said, as he was walking me out to my car, Wyatt suddenly said, "You know, I always wondered what Bill Harvey was doing in Dallas in November of '63. Calvi recently recalled, "Excuse me," and the stunned French journalist who realized that Harvey's presence in Dallas that month was extremely noteworthy. What? "You know, I always wondered what Bill Harvey was doing in Dallas in November of '63, Calvi recently recalled. I put the emphasis like it was the start of a sentence. That was the end of it. And then, "Excuse me," said the stunned journalist who realized Harvey's presence in Dallas that month was extremely noteworthy. So Wyatt explained that he had bumped into Harvey on a plane to Dallas sometime before the assassination, and when he asked his boss why he was going there, Harvey answered vaguely, saying something like, "I'm here to see what's happening." When Calvi tried to pursue the conversation, Wyatt cut it off as abruptly as he had started it and said goodbye. Calvi himself forgot about Wyatt's remarks until years later. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Harvey was in Dallas in November of '63. House Assassination Committee investigator Dan Hardway, who was assigned to the panel to probe possible CIA connections to JFK's murder, observed years later. That's like a paragraph in between two sentence fragments. "We considered Harvey to be one of our prime suspects from the very start. He had all the key connections to organized crime, to the CIA station in Miami where the plots against Castro were run, to other prime CIA suspects like David Phillips. We tried to get Harvey's travel vouchers and security file from the CIA, but they always blocked us. But we did come across a lot of memos that suggested he was traveling a lot in the months leading up to the assassination." Was it on Egyptian planes, do you think? Tahi. I think Bob Lazar is a psyop. I don't know, though. He seems sincere, but maybe he's just autistic. Yeah, I was from Reno. I lived in Reno. And my high school was up Mount Rose Highway, and if you kept going, you'd hit Tahoe. Me? I've been saved by Jesus. Praise be to God. Christ is King. What you talking about? I don't know. I can't pretend to know. I've seen some weird stuff. Amen. Oh, Mary, I'm glad you're still here. Carla, meet Mary. Freedom is Mary. Oh, my. Oh, my God. All right. Where were we? Yeah, until years later. So I wouldn't be surprised to learn blah, 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 blah. We considered Harvey one of the prime suspects from the very start. He had all the key connections to organized crime. Yep. They blocked us when they tried to see the records, but we did come across memos. More recent legal efforts by the author to obtain Harvey's travel records from the CIA also proved fruitless, despite the '92 JFK Records Act, which required all federal agencies to release documents related to the Kennedy assassination. Now I know where to look. Hang on. I know where to look. I'm going to look up Harvey. I might come back, or I'll put it in a post. Maybe I'll make a short. Nobody will see. Jack Rubenstein. Jack Ruby. Do you know? Never mind. Never mind. He owned a club, and the band played there. And Robbie Robertson was talking about what it was like when they came to realize it was Jack Ruby's club. No, I don't think he did say that. You should watch The Chosen. You should watch The Chosen. All right. I put this here, so provided. Oh yeah, the author's note there is interesting. He's like, I'm still trying to get these records. CIA officials later talked about Harvey's stint in Rome as a sad exile for a once illustrious agent, a drunken last stand before his shameful exit from the agency. But that's not how Harvey himself or his deputy regarded his Rome interlude. Harvey still saw himself at the center of action, crawling through the criminal underworld, stockpiling weapons, conspiring with Italian security officials, in short, doing whatever was necessary for the cause of freedom. As for Wyatt, he saw his boss as a dangerous character rather than a figure of pathos, a man who would always suspect played a deeply sinister role in American history. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there, you guys. Wait, let me see first. 3 pages till the big event. Should I just finish it? Mm-hmm. I should keep going. Okay. Okay, finish. Yes. Thanks, guys. Oh, look who all's still here. All right, I love it. All right. We'll finish the parting glass chapter. So if Rome was filled with the greatest amounts of political intrigue during JFK's final tour of Europe, then his 4-day stopover in Ireland in late June of '63 brimmed over with the greatest emotion for Kennedy. There was no compelling political reason for the president to visit the Emerald Isle, as Kennedy O'Donnell, his fellow Boston Irishman, but tough-minded advisor, told him. It would be a waste of time. O'Donnell said, "You've got all the Irish votes in the country you'll ever get. If you go to Ireland, people will say it's just a pleasure trip." But to Kennedy, exhausted from constant barrage of Cold War crisis, abroad and in the turmoil within his own administration, that sounded exactly like what he wanted, a pleasure trip to Ireland. For Kennedy, whose 8 grandparents had all left Ireland for Boston, part of the heartbreaking depopulation of the island under British colonial rule, returning to Ireland was both a homecoming and a farewell. The first U.S. president to visit Ireland, and an Irish-American one at that. JFK was embraced by the Irish people as one of their own as he traveled throughout the island, visiting his ancestral homes and drinking tea and eating cold salmon sandwiches and his few remaining Irish relatives. The young and old poured into the street in Dublin and Galway and Cork and Limerick, cheering and frantically waving little American flags. Women with tears in their eyes held up rosary beads and shouted, "God bless you," as his open presidential limousine crept slowly along the weathered stone streets, with a beaming JFK standing tall in the back of the vehicle. School children sang Danny Boy and the Boys of Wexford, his favorite Irish songs. On jam-packed O'Connell Street in downtown Dublin, a group of nuns broke into a jig for Kennedy. How sweet. The Secret Service had warned local officials that Kennedy should be kept at a safe distance from the exuberant crowds because the jostling could injure his fragile back. But he was probably banging 2 prostitutes at the same time, right? But Kennedy himself ignored the guards, wading into packs of people who grabbed at him and embraced him and clapped him on the back. Instead of exhausting him, the trip clearly rejuvenated Kennedy. When the president first arrived in the U.S. Embassy in Dublin, where he and his entourage were staying, he looked very tired, and he seemed in a very thoughtful mood. According to Dorothy Tubridy, a longtime Irish friend of the Kennedy family. Shoot. But as each day went on, he became happier and more relaxed. From the time he stepped off the plane at Shannon Airport, it was love at first sight. David Powers, Kennedy's other indispensable Boston, I keep trying to say Bostonian, but it's Boston Irishman, later recalled, he fell in love with Ireland and more after 4 days. And the Irish people fell in love with him because he was one of theirs. He knew it and they knew it. He was the President of the United States and he was one of their own. Ireland was still poor, still divided by religion and British rule, still exporting its sons and daughters across the ocean as laborers and hired help. But here was John Fitzgerald Kennedy, a shining symbol of Irish resilience and success, returning to them at last. Here he was, a good-looking man, marvelous teeth, lots of hair, beautiful wife and children, quick intellect, an Irishman and a Catholic, recalled a Dublin journalist who covered JFK's majestic visit. He could have been any of our cousins. The trip brought out Kennedy's fine, dry wit. He seemed to get looser at each public event. When my great-grandfather left here to become a cooper in East Boston, he carried nothing with him except two things, a strong religious faith and a strong desire for liberty, JFK told a crowd in a port town of New Ross, from where Patrick Kennedy had shipped out 100 years before, only to die after 10 years of backbreaking labor in his new homeland, leaving 4 young children behind. But JFK had the Irish gift for turning sorrow into laughter. If he hadn't left, I'd be working over there at Albatross Company, he said, pointing in the direction of a local fertilizer business, as the crowd broke into an uproarious laughter. Or, Kennedy continued, after a practiced pause, perhaps for John V. Kelly, a local pub owner, which brought new howls from the audience. In Wexford, Kennedy told the crowd, there is an impression in Washington that there is no Kennedys left in Ireland, and they are all in Washington, so I wonder if there are any Kennedys in this audience. A few hands fluttered in the air. Well, smiled JFK, I'm glad to see a few cousins who didn't catch the boat. Shit. Stop it. Stop swearing. But Kennedy was also deeply aware of Ireland's sense of loss and the sweet tragedy of life, and he beguiled crowds with verses of Irish poetry, snippets of Gaelic, the unconquered language, and quotations from the island's literary heroes. JFK had done his homework before the trip, reading and memorizing and dipping deeply into Ireland's cultural heritage. He knew that words were the key to the nation's heart. In February, as he was preparing for his Ireland trip, Kennedy had even invited the Clancy brothers, the popular Irish singers, to perform for him at the White House. The folk group ended all of their concerts with a traditional drinking song called The Parting Glass, an achingly beautiful tune that captured all of the Irish farewells down through the years. That good old Irish goodbye. As Kennedy toured the Green Island, he carried with him that unique Irish sensibility, that deep knowingness of the inevitability and the nobility, dang it, of defeat. They are really tempting my dyslexia. And the implacable will to carry on in defiance of one's fate. Let me read that again. That sounded profound. As Kennedy toured the Green Island, he carried within him, that unique Irish sensibility, that deep down knowingness of the inevitability and the nobility of defeat, and the implacable will to carry on. There we go. In defiance of one's fate. He never would have been president had he not been Irish, Jackie Kennedy later wrote to Eamon de Valera, the 80-year-old Irish president and legendary rebel leader who had hosted JFK during his visit. All the history of your people is a long one of overcoming obstacles. He felt that burden on him as a young Irishman in Boston, and he had so many obstacles in his life, his religion, his health, his youth. He fought against each one of them from the time he was a boy, and by always striving, he ended as president. He was so conscious of his heritage and so proud of it. And maybe that's why they're trying to eliminate never mind. That's another video. Okay, reminiscing about his Ireland trip, later with O'Donnell and Powers, JFK said that the emotional highlight for him had been his visit to Arbor Hill, a hallowed ground for the Irish people. It was here where the leaders of the 1916 Easter Rising, who had been executed by the British in Kilmainham jail, were laid to rest. Oh man, that was probably pretty like sorrowful of a sentence, and I laughed and giggled through it because, geez, Kilmainham jail. Kennedy, who placed a wreath on their graves, was the first foreign head of state to honor the martyrs of Irish nationalism. It was a poignant moment as the Irish Army Band played Chopin's Funeral March and a sad folk song called Flowers of the Forest, with the young Irish-American president standing silently next to frail, half-blind de Valera, who, as a young rebel leader, had also faced the hangman's noose in Kilmainham jail. Kennedy was fascinated by the story of Little Ireland's rising against the mighty British Empire, and he grilled de Valera during the trip about his role in the rebellion. How did de Valera escape the fate of his fellow rebel leaders? JFK wanted to know. Only because he was born in New York, explained the Irish president, and the British, eager to cajole America into World War I, were reluctant to offend their essential allies. But there were many times when the key in my jail cell was turned and I thought my turn had come, the old man told Kennedy. After laying the wreath at Arbor Hill, JFK delivered a nationally televised speech before the Irish Parliament. The speech made clear where Kennedy's sympathies lay in Ireland's long struggle for independence, a struggle that continued in North Ireland where the British still held sway. The indomitable people of Ireland had inspired the world, Kennedy told the Assembly. For every nation knows that Ireland was the first of the small countries in the 20th century to win its struggle for independence. By standing up to foreign domination, Ireland is the example and the inspiration to choose enduring, endless years of oppression. JFK, fresh from the stirring speech at the Berlin Wall, certainly had the people of Soviet-ruled Eastern Europe in mind. But there were also echoes in Kennedy's liberationist rhetoric of his earlier speeches about the anti-colonial struggles of Vietnam and Algeria. As Schlesinger noted, Kennedy's speeches stirred the forces of freedom around the world. In Ireland, his visit electrified a new generation struggling to free itself from the medieval domination of the Catholic Church and centuries of colonial backwardness. Later, working on his 1965 White House memoir, 1,000 Days, Schlesinger banged out a random observation on his typewriter that captured the unique global powers of the Kennedy era. Aura. The Kennedy aura. JFK accomplished an Americanization of the world far deeper and subtler than anything JFD, John Foster Dulles, ever dreamed of. Not a word of Americanized in the sense of adopting the platitudes and pomposities of free enterprise, but a world Americanized in the perceptions of and rhythms of life. JFK conquered the DRM of YTH. The dream of youth? There's sick after that, so it looks like a typo, but this is somebody else's quote. And Faulkner penetrated it. Not the world of the chancellors, but the underground world of fantasy and hope. But if Kennedy's presidency gave rise to dreams, it also triggered fear and reaction. To the Cold War establishment and other bastions of the old guard, JFK was not a charismatic symbol of change. He was a stark threat. It was clear by this point in his embattled presidency why Kennedy was so enthralled by legends of the Irish martyrs. Their deaths were his own death foretold. As he prepared for his trip to Ireland, Kennedy had come under the spell of an Irish poem about a fallen leader from days of old named Ogan O'Neill. Ruadh. Emphasis on the H. Yeah, I'm so glad you guys are still here. So the dude's name, right, reciting its verse so often in the White House that they stuck in the staff members' heads. The poem, by the early 19th century Irish poet and patriot Thomas Davis, who himself died young at age 30, was a lament for a beloved assassinated leader. What? Poisoned by the treacherous agents of British villainy. Here's the poem. Soft as woman's was your voice, O'Neill, bright your eye. Oh, why did you leave us, Ogan? Why did you die? Your troubles are over, you're at rest with God on high, but we're slaves and we're orphans, Ogan. Why did you die? He repeated that so often in the White House. It was stuck in staff members' heads. Soft as a woman's was your voice, O'Neill, bright your eye. Oh, why did you leave us, Ogan? Why did you die? Your troubles are all over, at rest with God on high, but we're slaves and we're orphans, Ogan. Why did you die? Wow, that's powerful. You know, did he manifest it? Did he just know? Kennedy's trip to the ancestral homeland was a celebration, but also a mourning. A melancholy note hovered over the ceremonial events, a sense of past and future loss, even as Kennedy tried to keep spirits high. On his final day in Ireland, while bidding farewell to a crowd in Limerick, Kennedy promised that he would return in the springtime. The same promise made by millions of other Irish men and women as they left their dearest ones for distant shores. Kennedy's days in Ireland were the happiest of his presidency. The trip meant more to him than any other in his life, Jackie wrote to President de Valera after her husband's death. I will bring up my children to be as proud of being Irish as he was. Whenever they see anything beautiful or good, they say, that must be Irish. Jackie, who was pregnant at the time, had not been able to accompany JFK on the trip, but she wrote to de Valera as if they were connected by blood, as if she had known the old Irish leader for years. I know we are all so blessed to have him as long as we did, she ended the letter, but I will never understand why God had to take him now. It's almost like she was grieving the loss of her husband. I mean, you could tell there. You could tell. All right. Let's get caught up. Let me see what I missed in the chat. Oh, even I know Tucker Carlson's interview with Jay Dyer. I saw that. I might listen to it tonight. Eliminate which song? The Whites, yes, that's what I was gonna say. Jimmy Hoffa's middle name? I don't know. Kilimanjaro, the mountain in Africa. Kilimanjaro, isn't it? We should have never gotten into either world war. Yeah. Yeah. What did Kanye say that painter said? That once we discover what was really going on there, that would be the start of World War III. Anyway, Windsor, no more save. Wilson sold their country out. Executive order 1111. Am I gonna have to look that up right now? Should I look that up right now? Executive order. All right, what is it? Why did it put a 0 at the end? Enter. More formally as Executive Order 5-1 is a historical presidential directive by JFK on June 11th. It authorized the Secretary of Defense to use the armed forces to suppress unlawful assemblies, enforce federal laws, and remove obstructions of justice within the state of Alabama regarding the desegregation of schools. Oh, yeah. If you are interested in looking for... Nope. All right. Well, yeah. Pleasure to be here. I'm so glad you were here. It is a beautiful poem. Good night, Mary. Yes. For their sincerity and their patriotism. I liked Charlie better when he was a libertarian, but I understand what he was doing. In hindsight, I can look back and be like, dang it. But I also know like he was so betrayed by the people he loved and trusted and held up. He held them up and they just said, you know, when they asked Trump about it, he's like, oh yeah, very sad, but our ballroom. But the ballroom. You've been for what for 5 years? Blue-collared fucking dude would have been a good name for Billy Ray Cyrus cover. Free never came up. Interesting. Seriously, Barron and Candace should be on Tyler's defense team. I don't know why they aren't talking with them. And maybe they are, and they just can't say it out loud. All right, what book is it? I remember I showed you. All right. Let me get back to the bottom. Let's see where... There was a long chat today. Very disappointed in Trump. Thank you for being here while I was reading. I do this impulsively anyway, and I don't know, I've always wanted, like I said before, if you've been on this whole time, I've always wanted to be in a book club. I was like, you know what, shoot, why don't I just... Because I started reading bedtime stories for my kids on YouTube. I felt like if they, you know, at one point even long term, maybe they want to share their kids, their grandmother reading them about conspiracy theories, because I read the Tuttle Twins books to them. True conspiracy theory. Anyway, here I am. I can't talk anymore. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Sam, I agree with you. Was the end of the Federal Reserve, what, legally, and it's just been running? You've been eating uranium? Like those uranium ladies from back in the day? Didn't Disturban do Disturban History? They did a story about that. They would paint the uranium paint on the watch faces and lick the brush so that it would give them the fine line. I think you're screwed, my guy. Kyle. Oh my God, that's funny. Have you seen Kyle? Sorry. Clock painters. Radium girls, that's it. Allison, hi. Have you been here for a minute? Good to see you. Good to meet you. Allison Hope. I know somebody named with the last name of Hope. Is that your real last name or is it your middle name? You don't have to divulge. You just got here? Well, that's all right. Or are you telling me to wait? It's 1:30 in the morning here. It's Eastern time. I'm tired. Y'all tired? What are y'all doing? Hope is last name. I love that. I love the last name of Hope. Well, lovely to meet you. Yeah. God save the USA. Jay, are you Jay from New Orleans? Thanks. I think you're awesome. I think you're awesome for being here. I feel like, because it's nice. They tell you not to advertise your YouTube through your family or friends or on like a Facebook post, because the people who find your page regularly will help you build because they like go for whatever niche you're in. But I have found some really cool folks. Carla, I'm so glad to meet you. Subscribe, hit the bell, but click all, because otherwise you won't get notified. Do you think Trump was always controlled opposition, knowing they couldn't hold the dam back? I don't think so. I think they got to him. The golden pager was a message. The earshot was a message. Even if it was coordinated, I don't think he was in on it. Awesome. I'll look for you. I think they got to him. I think he's afraid for Kai. I think he's afraid for his kids. I think I'm giving him the grace too. If he couldn't talk about Charlie's assassination, they asked him about it. And he's like, let's talk about the ballroom. Like, I think maybe he got scared, or else he would have never gone back to the promise made. Yeah, promises made, promises kept he doesn't say that anymore, does he? He sure doesn't. Because I think when he told Charlie Kirk, when Andrew Colvett was there, either Charlie went home and told Erica, or Andrew went home and told his wife, who told Erica. The ballroom, that's right. I think that was what got him shot, because it was like 2 weeks later that he was shot, days later, and or shot at, whatever, grazed. Like, I remember when Tyson bit off the ear of Holyfield, I thought that was the kind of wound he was going to have. It was just a little bit of blood, though, so it didn't have to be big, but there'd be something left behind, right? I don't know. I don't want to speculate too far into that. He doesn't. Yep, he is fully embraced in the swamp. I love how Corey's wife is speaking out, and you could tell she was real nervous in doing so, but when she ended it by pleading with Trump, please don't forgive us or forget us. We're still here. I don't know. Yeah, definitely 100%. What was hilarious? Sean St. Pierre, are you from Louisiana also? Name. What are you saying, Sean? You're a Spanish, Jew, and Irish from all sides, and I have learned a lot about Zionism in old days. Israel is God's country, his land, and for son would come, but then to it now being a political party. That's the thing. And I saw some videos of Israeli military, I don't know if they're IDF or what, but they are labeled in the video as Zionists, and you can tell they're in Israel, but they are beating the living crap out of a bunch of rabbis, and like it's just stark. And I've seen and shared, but they were shadow banned or removed, images of you're Sephardic, not Ashkenazi. What was the firefighter's wife? I forget her name, but it's what's her last name? Comparator. Comparator. I thought it was Comparator, whatever. Yeah, he is. Your dad is. I often think about that. I don't have my dad anymore. I wonder what he would say about all this stuff. Towards the end of his life, he became quite intolerant. He didn't want to watch. Like, I tried to make him watch Loose Change. I think it was like the 3rd volume or the 3rd making of it. Across flipping tables. That's funny, isn't it? The sun symbol. I know what you're saying, but I just wanted to say that too. That's funny. I mean, it's funny, interesting. I've met some new people here today, and I want to invite you to stick with us. Like, come hang out in the chat. The best part about this book club is interacting with you and going through the book with you. I feel self-conscious because I do stumble a lot over the words, but I feel like in the day and age of like AI writing music and AI or super scripted and polished audiobooks, like it gets monotonous and it drones on, and I feel like engaged reading like this just with other people and talking about it while you read it, you maintain more of it, you retain more of it, I should say. BB is literally coming just to make sure the military is joining. And to hear all the old senators and Congress people talking about how much America needs Israel. And we need to just keep giving them all this money, or else we won't have any allies in the Middle East. Didn't Trump already smooth over Middle Eastern relations? Hasn't he been working on that for 8 years? Why suddenly our only hope for existence is maintaining Israel while they commit? Anyway, you're writing a book. Well, I've been writing a book for a long time. It took 12 years. Oh my gosh. You went to revival? Oh my gosh. All this stuff is so exhausting. It's interesting and infuriating, but knowing the things that will never change and only getting worse. I know. And I feel like I didn't want to watch the preliminary hearing. And I feel my dad's pain. Like, he didn't want to watch people fucking up the legal proceedings because he loved the law. He was a student of the law. Congratulations. I'm so glad. You know, that hits home with a lot of people, and seeing the triumph, that's a beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing. And his Kushner son is always working on those deals. Yeah, you know, there's no, and so I used to be like, that's amazing that Trump never took a salary, so he wasn't taking taxpayer dollars, but he is the most enriched president in the history of our country, family-wise. Yeah, it was a joke. And everybody's sitting there. I mean, you already heard it. You followed Charlie and Candace when they first taught TPUSA. He's going to be your press. I know. I know. The judge was a theater kid newbie. He did. I wondered, like, Barron was like, he seemed sincere if this was the first time he's seen Charlie get shot, but I don't. How are you? I don't know. Everybody's seen it. Everybody's seen it. And if you know that that case is coming and you see, it's unavoidable. I don't know. Miriam Adelson? Yeah. Or do you mean Miriam? For sure. I buy that. That makes sense. I don't know. He got rich off the Trump coin, just like that Hawk Tuah girl who, and I call Erica Francevay the new Hawk Tuah girl because she's out there doing it just like she did, and everybody hates her. They redid which Charlie's or the Butler. I know that Butler's been out on. It's getting a new revival. Yeah, and it was all brain blood. And you could see, once I saw that, I was like, fuck, he's not going to live. I remember CYPMVI. Hi, welcome. We just finished. He was going to take the money and then F them over and found out. And that's when Butler happened. That's exactly right. And then, what was it, in May or something after the Lebanon pager explosions happened, Trump was gifted a golden pager. It's in our faces, and they think we're stupid. And that may be what's our saving grace, because they think we're stupid, and we're not. And I love how Candace has been saying, like, she's proud of us because we're out here not falling for the Fed slop, the narrative, the propaganda. It doesn't work anymore, and that gives me hope as well. Yeah, and you know, I just saw there was a diagram of the steel beam construction. So the beams were thinner up top, but they got real thick at the bottom. They got exponentially thicker at the bottom. And that's why where you saw those crisscross cuts from the free fall collapse into dust, that a plane hitting the top floor of a steel reinforced core concrete building built to withstand airplane impact fell at, yet again, free fall rate. It's just incredible. It must have been bin Laden, you know? Yeah, the pager attacks, didn't it kill a kid? And okay, what is that? I shared a link where you can go, it's exposinggenocide.com or .co or something like that. And it is just a database of all of the evidence of all of the butchered children and families and neighborhoods and They try to wipe it off the internet. We've got a database, so check that out. Yeah. I'm so glad I've met some new friends here. Stick around, come back and find me, and I'll do another late night stream tomorrow. And I look forward to seeing you there. Bird flock damage on aircraft. Yeah, absolutely. One bird can cave in the nose of an airplane. I come from, my dad was an attorney. My mom was a pilot. She was an airline pilot. And she got her, anyway, whatever. I have a family of pilots. I've even flown planes in my day, and none of it makes sense. And she even gets emotional when I talk about the lines in the sky. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. It's been fun. I'll see you tomorrow.